Hey guys, what's up? It's Katie and I'm back with another Marvel Contest of Champions video, and thanks to the CCP, I have early access to the Champion Spotlight for Professor X. So let's go ahead, take a look at his mechanics, his abilities, his stats, and see if he is the Omega level mutant that we deserve. So let's go ahead and take a look at Professor X. So Professor X believed in peaceful coexistence of mutants and humans, but all this changed when Moira McTaggart revealed to him the inevitable demise of mutant kind unless Professor X could change his ways. So under the moniker X, so we are getting the House of X, Professor X, he gave up his old dreams. No more would mutants endure the afflictions and prejudice of humankind. Under the formidable rule of X, the mutant nation of Krakoa was founded, and those who defy the nation must enter the mindscape and face Professor X in a duel of mental strength. So let's go ahead and take a look at his mechanics. Professor X channels his psychic power to mind control his opponents, locking them from using special attacks and gaining power. As Professor X wins fights, he gains cerebro charges, boosting the effects of his powerful synergies. So it looks like Professor X could potentially be a highly good synergy champ, or maybe not. I don't know. Let's take a look at his stats. So he's kind of squishy. I mean, if you look at his health, he's a little bit squishy. His PI isn't too bad, his prestige isn't too bad, but he's definitely a little bit of a squishy champ. So he's obviously going to be a mutant champ, and he's going to have basic abilities of cerebro charges, mind control, falter, prowess, and vigilance. So let's look at his strengths. So he prevents miss and evade. Once he has gained enough channeling charges, he can bypass miss and evade effects very reliably. And we'll talk about this whole channeling charges here in a little bit. Controller, with the combined use of his falter, unblockable, and mind control abilities, opponents will be playing on Professor X's terms each fight. So this is interesting. I can't wait to figure out what this actually means, and mutant super support. Make the most of Professor X by pairing him with other mutants and X-Men. As Professor X wins fights, he gains cerebro charges, which boost his synergy effects, benefiting his team. So I'm definitely interested to see what this is and how they are all going to play out. So let's take a look at his weaknesses. Low health. Professor X has a very small health pool, which makes chip damage and especially damage over time effects very potent against him. So when we talk about these weaknesses, this is going to be important when we face him in the monthly event quest. Maybe just event quest, potentially cap difficulty, definitely cap difficulty. What am I talking about? Tech champion. So you're gonna want to bring a tech champion in against him, since he loses his counter to miss and evade effects through against tech champions, and he cannot use as many special attacks during mind control against them. So you're definitely going to need to bring in a tech champ against him. And then power control. If Professor X can't use special attacks, he can't deal very much damage. So it looks like, you know, Warlock, the Visions, probably Mysterio, those guys are going to be key against countering him. All right, so now let's take a look at his abilities. So the first one is mutation, always active. Professor X's first medium attack is the only basic attack that makes contact with his opponent. All of Professor X's attacks deal energy and damage, and he is immune to reverse controls due to his mastery over telepathy. So if you are facing Emma Frost, he's gonna be a really good Emma Frost counter, right? Right. And then we've got falter. When Professor X would be struck by a basic attack, he inflicts a falter passive, causing 100% of the opponent's attacks to miss for 2 seconds, and it has a 20-second cooldown but starts with a 10-second cooldown. So I guess it builds up similarly to, I forget whose does that, but it builds up time in the cooldown. When the opponent lands a special attack, falter is removed. So the way to get rid of those falters is to be landing special attacks, and then avoiding an attack while dodging backwards during falter's cooldown reduces the duration by 1 second. So this ability allows Professor X to safely channel without being attacked. It's up to the player to maximize Professor X's falter ability. The more attacks he dodges, the more times he can use it. So kind of keep that in mind when you're playing against him in this month's Uncollected event quest. So let's talk about these persistent cerebro charges. Now they stack at a max of 4, and he starts each quest with 1, and he gains 1 when he wins a fight. Now, these Cerebro charges increase the potency of his Synergies, and one of his greatest features in this is his Synergies. So unlike most, Professor X can increase the potency of his Synergies by winning fights. So it seems like he's going to be a high Synergy dependent champ. Okay, so I talked earlier about channeling. So let's talk about this because this is important when it comes to Professor X. So Professor X channels his telepathic abilities, gaining 10 channeling charges per second at the end of his Special 1 and Special 2 attacks, and while charging his heavy attack. When he is power burned or drained, he loses 50 channeling charges. So definitely going to want to bring in a power control champ, one that power burns or power drains when you're coming up against him. Hello, OG Vision. While at 25 plus channeling charges against non-tech champions, Professor X cannot be evaded and gains a vigilance passive, allowing all attacks to bypass miss. So this is good for champs like, you know, Hood when he's invisible, and it's great for those pesky evaders. I'm looking at you, Miles Morales. While at 50 plus channeling charges, using the 4th light attack inflicts mind control on the opponent. When activating a special attack with 100 channeling charges, automatically inflict mind control. Now, mind control, this is a new mechanic and it's only at the point in this game available to Professor X at the recording of this video. So basically what he's going to have is he's going to have these pink and purple waves emanating, indicating that he is channeling. Now, when he is defending, this is a good way to punish him. So we need to keep that in mind when we face him in this month's event quest. So let's talk about completing and canceling channeling, because that's a thing. So you can complete or cancel by a heavy attack and you can gain 10 channeling charges. You can cancel by blocking, charging a heavy, or using a light, medium, or special attack. You gain a prowess buff, increasing special attack damage by 40% for 36 seconds. That is a long time. Now you can also cancel by dashing backwards, and that refreshes the duration of all prowess effects on Professor X. So basically you're able to cancel out the channeling during the Special 1 and Special 2 attacks by inputting an action. So you can cancel it and decide what effects you want to have activated. So this is gonna kind of lead to some interesting gameplay. So I can't wait to see how this guy is, because on paper he's like a book, at least to me he seems like. So I can't wait to see what this guy is actually like in the game. So let's talk about his mind control, because that lasts for 0.5 seconds for every channeling charge. So the opponent is then locked from gaining power or using any of their special attacks. So this is a great form of power control, and the duration of the power control is paused during Professor X's special attacks, except while channeling. Now, Professor X's special attacks are unblockable and cost up to 70% less power based on the number of channeling charges, and that's reduced by 40% against tech. So again, when you're facing Professor X, you're going to want to bring a tech champion. Now, he is honestly the first champ that is able to lock opponents out of using their specials, which is just mind-boggling to me, and I think it's amazing. So, and when he is in mind control, this is when you can actually launch as many special attacks as possible, because your opponent won't ever be able to use the Special 3 or potentially get to the Special 3. So I think that is pretty cool. I can't wait to see how this mechanic actually works in the game. So let's talk about his special attacks, right? The first one is the Psychic Grasp, and he gains 25 channeling charges. Now, during mind control, players, you'll find that you're going to be able to perform several special ones in quick succession with enough power. At least that's what I'm hoping from what I'm reading. So let's take a look at his Special 2, Psy Blades. The last 3 hits deal a burst of energy damage, and this ability scales with special attack damage. So this seems to be where his damage is going to be at. So if the more prowess buffs that you have, this will increase the burst of energy damage. So if you're looking for big damage, this is the special that you're going to want to use. So now let's talk about the Special 3, Duel of the Mind. Gain a prowess buff for each Cerebro charge, increasing special attack damage by 60% and lasting 4 seconds, maxing at 4 stacks. So I love champs that gain prowess. As we all know, I love my Emma. So this is kind of interesting, because as he wins more fights, he'll gain more Cerebro charges, which will then increase the benefit of the Special 3. So that's going to be kind of interesting. So then you can actually end up using your Special 2 immediately after this attack for that big damage. So I'm looking forward to this guy. I really hope his animations are cool. So let's talk about his signature ability, Krakoan Sovereignty. I know I mispronounced that. While below 75 channeling charges, gain 1 charge per second, and while defending, this rate is doubled and charges are gained for the entire fight. Gain up to 50% prowess potency, increasing with the opponent's power meter. So this is when you want to inflict mind control and when the opponent has as much power as possible. Think of it as like Storm Special 2. The more damage Storm does with her Special 2 is based on how full the opponent's power bar is. So this then is going to increase all of the prowess buffs gained during mind control, and he could potentially do some pretty big numbers for that Special 2. At least that's what I'm hoping. So now let's talk about his synergy. So he's got one with himself where all X-Men and mutants except for Professor X have 25% increased special attack damage for each Cerebro charge. So build him up and then you can use your other mutants to get that extra charge. All right, and then he's got one with Wolverine, X-23, and Colossus called Drug Eye. So with all mutants and X-Men except Professor X, you gain 18% poison resistance for each Cerebro charge. And then Wolverine and X-23 have an increase in crit rating, and Colossus starts with 1 indefinite armor up buff, which is great for Colossus. So this is a really cool synergy. It seems though that with Professor X, you're going to be heavily reliant upon mutant champions, which makes sense. And then we've got Habitat with the Storms and Emma Frost. So all mutants and X-Men except Professor X gain 15% prowess effect duration for each Cerebro charge, max 60%. And this is great for Emma and Storm Pyramid X since they are heavily reliant on those prowess charges for that big special damage. And then the Storms have increased shock potency, and Emma gains increased crit rating with her power meter. So almost get to that Special 3, have your 10 prowess, and launch it. That's a pretty awesome synergy with him. I actually really like that. And then he's got the Drug L synergy with the Cyclops and with Phoenix. So all mutants and X-Men except Professor X, once per fight when a champion would be knocked out, immediately regenerate 7.5% of their max health for each Cerebro charge. So this is almost like kind of a Heimdall synergy, only slightly better, because if instead of going indestructible, you gain some health back, you regen some health back. So I like this, and of course it only works on mutants, but hey, if you're mutant dependent on your roster, go for it. And then for the Cyclops, beam hits gain 100% crit damage rating and inflicted armor break. And then for Phoenix, when overloaded, Phoenix gains an indefinite fury passive, increasing her attack rating by 60% at a max of 5 stacks. So that's actually not too bad for Phoenix. And he's got a synergy with Nightcrawler, Archangel, and Beast called Gateway, where all the mutants and X-Men except Professor X gain 6% of a bar of power every 10 seconds for each Cerebro charge. Nightcrawler and Archangel increase their bleed potency, and Beast increases the duration of freestyle and acrobatic combo success by 5 seconds. So this is actually pretty good. This isn't a bad synergy whatsoever. That 6% of a bar of power every 10 seconds isn't bad. I wish it was maybe reduced a little bit, but if it's someone who gains a ton of power, that wouldn't be too bad. And then he's got the Drug M synergy with Iceman and the Magnetos. So all mutants and X-Men except Professor X gain a mental barrier with 2.5% of current health for each Cerebro charge, max 10% health. So whenever the champion would take damage except from Special 3 attacks, the barrier takes 75% of the damage until it reaches 0 health. That's almost like an indestructible charge. That is almost like an indestructible charge. So that's really cool. Iceman, instead of when his ice armor shatters, all frostbite effects expire instantaneously, which means big instant damage. Magneto Marvel Now, or Magneto House of X, I should say. Guidance bonuses, attack rating is increased by a flat 5% or 15% on the final node of a quest. And then Red Mag's plus 15% attack rating while fighting #Metal Champions. That's pretty big since he really benefits from fighting metal champions. So I gotta say, Professor X is looking like kind of a decent champion. He's definitely more of a synergy champion to really boost those mutant and X-Men champions, but I'm pretty pumped to see what he's going to be like. Let me know in the comments below, how do you think Professor X, House of X, is going to be? Do you think his abilities are too complex? Do you think he's going to be more of a synergy boosting champ than an all-around playable champ? Do you think he's going to be a defender or an attacker? Let me know in the comments below and let's discuss. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you guys liked what you saw and you want to see more, please remember to like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter and hit me up in the Discord chat. Thanks, guys. Bye.